time they bring in your misconception to make us busy with their misconception. Don't forget about da'wah. Forget about da'wah. Okay, make us busy, okay? I'm not going to speak about these issues because many have spoken about them. Each one requires a whole section, but I try to provide you with some of the methodology that we apply in dealing with these misconceptions and other misconceptions as well. And da'wah, ya ikhwan, in the way of Allah is commitment. If you're committed to da'wah, you need to spend a lot of time for it. You cannot give it little part of your time, and you want to be a big da'i. No. And you want to influence people. Especially nowadays, although there are many da'wah opportunities, alhamdulillah, I came to you, somebody told me that 10 people became Muslims at the center. 10 people became Muslims at once. Okay? And we can get more people. And if you want to get that pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that one day Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَاللَّهِ لَنْ يَهْدِيَ اللَّهُ بِكَ رَجُلًا وَاحِدًا خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنْ حُمْرِ. If you guide one person, it's worth the whole world and more. You see? So if you realize that requires a lot of. Don't think that this training course, may Allah reward you, come on a Friday evening and to just find time to learn and benefit and even participate. But it's not enough. It's not enough. You need to dig in, work harder to get the reward. إذا قال لك واحد الوظيفة هذه you get $20,000, but you need to work hard for 4 years. Are you going to do it? لكن قال الوظيفة 2000 ريال بس مجرد السنة تدرس. Is it really that ambitious? No. So the work of da'wah is something great that requires a lot of hard work, a lot of devotion, a lot of dedication. So you get the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the reward of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that can never be equated with any other reward. I think this is enough for me, maybe not for you. I thank you all for taking the time, the effort to come to this place in this relaxing Friday evening. May Allah reward you all. Reward those people who work hard to make this program successful. There's been a lot of work going on in the backyard, before and after, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward them and give all of us paradise. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka. I thank you for your active participation as well.
Okay, we're going to find balance between being nice and being effective. But if we don't think about being nice, we end up being bombastic. And bombastic means that we overwhelm people, we overshadow people. And especially if you have a personality like mine, you do tend to overwhelm people without even realizing it. And overshadowing people though, so you've got to work on it. So with regard to communication, we need to understand that not only do our mouths talk, but our bodies talk as well. That our mouths, when they talk with history, okay? Because the way we are as human beings is often a result of how we were raised as children. How did our parents raise us? What did they make us believe? What did they make us think? How did my father react in situations? How did my mother react in situations? And that gets transposed into our own personas at the end of the day. So the way we were parented, the way we were raised has a huge influence on the way we think as adults today. So we have to bear that in mind. And if we stop and think before we speak, it actually prevents a lot of misunderstandings, it prevents a lot of hurt, and it prevents a lot of heartache. Because once you've said something, you cannot unsay it. You cannot take it back. At the end of the day, if you've said it, you've got to live with the consequences of what we've said. And often, what happens is we speak when we are angry, or we speak when we are overexcited, and then the wrong thing comes out. Or it comes out the wrong way. So speaking to people is not just something we do on a daily basis, but it can become an art, it can become a craft, it can be something that we become good at. I think at the age of 45, I've got to the point where I'm not nervous about speaking in front of people. I can stand in front. My work in South Africa was in the field of HIV/AIDS, and I did a lot of motivational speaking. I used to go to schools where I'd speak in front of 1,000 kids. So I'd go to places of work where they'd stop work for an hour and let them chat with me, and there'd be hundreds of people sitting in little intimate groups of 2 or 3. But even go to stadiums, soccer stadiums, football stadiums, and speak to 5,000 or 10,000 people. So I as an individual have got to the stage where I can do that comfortably. But I haven't got to the stage where I'm watching my mouth well enough yet. And that is something we have to identify about ourselves, is that we have to know what our shortcomings are as human beings. And part of that is our communicative skills, our communication skills, how we speak to other people, what we say to other people. And that is a lesson that I have yet to learn. I still have to hold things back, rein things back. I often know how to say things, but I don't stop to think about the social context. Who am I speaking to? What are we speaking about? Is what I want to say appropriate for the occasion? Can I wait my turn? And that goes down to saying things like, lose some battles to win the war. So countries are at war. Strategically, they could win a battle because it might help them to be stronger in other areas. And if you're stronger in other areas, you might win the whole war. And that is the aim, to win the war. You know, whether it's in religion. You know, I was speaking to some of the young guys here before we started, and I said that Shaitan, Satan, uses logic and he uses clever thoughts to put doubt in our minds sometimes. We have a war against that. We have the war against poverty. We have the war against famine in certain countries. We have different wars. Personal wars that we have to fight are wars to become better people. Part of my own routine every day in trying to understand who I am as a person, trying to become a better communicator, is to stand in the mirror, in front of the mirror every day, and ask myself 2 things. The first thing is monetary, because I've been brought here to teach, so I've been paid. And I think we all need to do this, and I think it could be a bit of a problem in this country. But to stand in front of the mirror and say to myself, did you deserve your salary today? Did you deserve your salary today? You've been asked to teach for 35 hours a week, or to teach for a certain number of hours and do admin for the rest. Are you pulling your weight? Are you doing enough so that on the 25th Hijri, when the phone comes at 12 o'clock at night and it's beep beep, and I look and I'm thinking, Assalam Palace tonight, okay? No pasta at home. I won't eat pasta at home tonight. I'm going to go and eat at a good restaurant. Did I deserve that meal? Did I deserve the money that is paying for the meal? And that is something that we need to understand with regard to the war within ourselves, and it's part of communication. The other war that we have within ourselves is, when I look in the mirror at night, I have to ask myself, was I a good man or woman today? Okay? Was I a good man today? A good human being? And that has a lot of communicative aspects to it, because at the end of the day, part of being a good man is your interaction, or most of being a good man is your interaction with other people. And unfortunately for myself, a lot of the times, if I'm honest with myself, I've got to say, no. And if we're all honest with ourselves, we also have to say, no, I wasn't. And then you've got to ask yourself, if the answer is no, what can I do tomorrow to be a good man? But we're human beings. This is the thing. We are human beings. At the end of the day, as human beings, we're made fallible. If we were made perfect, there wouldn't be religion. There wouldn't be a need for religion. There wouldn't be a need for a lifestyle, because we'd be perfect. But we're not made perfect, and that makes it necessary. So we've got to ask ourselves, and we've got to work at it. And I'm far too volatile to be a good man right now. lot of my students will come to me. I was very surprised when I first came here because, can you come in? No? Okay. It's okay. In my country, if men greet each other, we just like so macho and everything. So if we greet each other, we'll say hello and we'll grab each other. Not a soft little girly handshake. Okay, we'll say hello, how are you? And then what we'll do is we'll hit each other's shoulders. Okay, and then we turns around and go, you know. We don't do this whole you can sit down. We don't do this whole kissing thing, all right? And all of a sudden I come to Saudi Arabia and everybody wants to kiss me. All the men want to kiss me, and I'm thinking, these are strange people. Stranger than the media in the West said. Okay. And this happens, and I'm thinking, ooh, this is really crazy. Okay. And then, I don't know why I told you that. It's about communication. When we're communicating, you know, a lot of the students come to me at the university and they kiss me on my forehead. And once I was standing, when I first got here, I've been here for about 3 months, I was standing at the elevator and one of the students had seen me come down the passage and wait at the elevator. And he came running down and he said, doctor, doctor, doctor. I thought, oh my goodness, this guy's going to die, or, you know, he's got an appendix attack or something's wrong. You know, what's going on? And I turned around and I said to him, what's wrong? And he came up to me and he grabbed me and he kissed me like this and he kissed me like this. He says, I love you so much. He says, you're the best doctor in this whole university. And I said, you're giving me a heart attack for this? But it was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. When I think about it, you know, I was a bit blown away and I was thinking, you know, I wanted to say to him, I'm glad I'm the best doctor on campus, but don't kiss me again. But I kept quiet, all right? So now they still come if I'm sitting in class at the end, they'll walk past and they'll plant a kiss on my forehead or whatever. That's a form of communication. Because, I mean, if I come to you and I like you and I respect you and I kiss you on your forehead, what am I saying? What am I saying? Respect. Okay? So he didn't have to come to me. He said, I love you. You know, I'm 45 years old. I have never told my dad that I love him. Never. At all. And I won't. He's still alive, but I won't. I just know that is the dynamic between us. That is the way I was raised. Because when we were raised, he never, ever hugged me. And he never kissed me, and he never told me he loved me. And now all of a sudden he's in his 70s, and he's looking for this time, I think. But we've got 45 years of history that we've got to bridge before we can do that. I've got to the point now where, you know, he comes up to me and my father is only about that tall. And my mother is even shorter, but he'll come and he'll hug me and he'll put his arms around my waist and he'll give me a squeeze and I'm thinking, you can let go now. Stop this immediately, you know. There's no emotion in it for me. There's no feeling in it for me. But that is something we as dads need to remember. Is the communication with our kids. And I've spoken to a lot of the kids in my classes today, and I say to them, how many of you have a good relationship with your dad? And out of 24 kids, probably 1, 2. Because dads from time gone by thought that a dad's job is to bring home the camel at the end of the month. And that it was the mom's job to cook the camel and to look after the kids and take care of the kids and offer the love. He had his job, but now I walk around a Seed Mall. Now most of you young guys can't walk around a Seed Mall on a weekend, but as an Amriki they do let me in. And I sit and I observe families, because that's my job. I sit and I observe families and I see young men holding their sons and their daughters and they're walking around. This is my baby. This is my son. Not only did I make him, but I'm raising him. I'm raising him. And it makes my heart very glad. It makes my heart very glad because there's nothing as terrible as not knowing communication with your father. There's nothing as terrible as not knowing the love of your father. Because fathers of old often used parenting as something, or viewed parenting as something you do. But parenting is something that you live. Because if you've got the time to make the baby, you should have the time to raise the baby. And at the end of the day, this is what creates the beginning of communication between mothers and fathers and children, is the fact that the parents take the initiative when they're kids, because kids are open to love. Kids are always open to love. You know, I see little kids here, and when I first got here, I was very nervous because I was told, don't look at the woman, okay? Especially if the husband's with. If you look that way, he's going to be offended, it's going to be a problem. Don't look at the woman. But then you walk around the mall and you get these little kids looking at you. You know, and you think, oh God, what do I do now? You know, if I look at the kid and pat him on the head or something, you know, maybe the Matawa will come and arrest me, and, you know, I don't want to go to jail. I mean, as it was before, I was arrested in the Baladia, and I was held at the Matawa Center for 2 hours because they couldn't really communicate. Eventually they understood I wasn't a Muslim, that's why I wasn't praying. But I don't want to be arrested. But I love kids. I really like kids. And I see the little kids, and they're walking around holding their mother's hands, and they're holding their father's hands, and I'm walking on, and they look at you and they smile. They look at you and they're happy to see you. And my immediate reaction is to pat them on the head or give a smile back on that type of thing. But they don't need that from strangers. They have moms and dads. Not just moms and dads. And at the end of the day, if they've got a dad that is giving them all the love, they're not going to be looking at strange men in the mall. Because they're going to have everything they need from their moms and dads. And this is part of communication that is very important between men and their children. And I think in the older generations in this society, it was lacking somewhat. I'm not saying, and I'm generalizing now, so please forgive me. If you're older and you have grown kids and you have a wonderful relationship with them, mashallah, that is nice. Okay? But a lot of the kids will come and tell me, I don't have a relationship with my dad. So you as dads and you as moms need to actually look at your children not as things that you brought into the world and objects until they grow up. They actually have a brain from before they're born. And they have feelings. And they have emotions. And they get happy. And they get sad. And they get angry. And we as parents, we need to accommodate that. I'm not saying let your children rule your lives. No. There's a whole reason for having a mom and dad. Because being a mom and dad is about raising your children to become good adults. But we're not doing that a lot of the time. Because we don't communicate with our kids, we don't talk to our kids, we don't spend time with our kids. What we do is we are so busy running our own lives. How often on a weekend do I go to the mall and the husbands have dropped the wives and the kids at the mall and they've gone off with their friends? Or they leave their wives and kids at home in the evening and they've gone off with their friends. And what you're doing through your actions, not through your words, but through your actions, you're communicating to your kids that this is what a marriage is about. This is what makes a marriage. So when you're sitting having coffee with your friends and your wife, and kids are sitting at home, and as the tradition is, you've made 12 or 13 of them, okay? So you've got one woman looking after 12, 13 kids, okay? And you're sitting having a nice time with your friends, and you're sitting having a nice time having dinner. There's so many bachelors' restaurants here. And as a bachelor, I'm glad, okay? And I have a lot of good times at restaurants here. But I cannot agree with all the married men that are sitting there while their wives and their children are sitting at home without a father figure. While their wives and children are sitting at home wanting their attention. While their wives and children are sitting at home wondering where he is, or whether, another thing in Saudi Arabia, the crazy drivers here have killed him or not. And then eventually they want to go to bed and the father's not even home yet. And they've got to put their heads on the pillow and they've got to wonder, is he coming home tonight? Or will we bury him before sunrise? That's not communication. That's not the way people should be speaking to each other. That's not the way people should be treating each other. And communication boils down to respect. At the end of the day, I've got verbal diarrhea, so I speak and speak and speak. I don't know what the time is. It's about respect, okay? It's about thinking about how you would like to be treated. And if you can stop and think for a minute and say to yourself, what I'm about to say to my wife now, So what I'm about to say to my friend or my colleague or my student, if they said that to me, how would I feel? And if we can do that, it's going to cut out. And I know, Doc, I was saying it now, but I just waffle in the university sometimes. And then I walk away and I think, oh, you shouldn't have said that, okay? But we need to do this. How would I feel if somebody said that to me? And if you know that you wouldn't feel good, what right do you have to say that to somebody else? This is the gist of what I wanted to bring to you today. There's a couple of minutes, 15 minutes, if you want to ask me questions, you're more than welcome. Please don't be shy. I like questions. I know there's a culture sometimes at the university where they don't like the students to ask questions. I like questions. So if you have questions, you're welcome.
On your behalf, we thank Brother Abdurrahman Andri very, very much. We didn't feel the time. I say it from my heart. Now it's the question and answer, and we will pass this microphone to the ladies section in case they have a question or commentary.
I'm a very ugly looking man. You don't want to sit and stare at me for 20 minutes, all right? Okay. Rather ask me questions. Be nice.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I waited for someone else to pick up the mic, but it seems that they're waiting for someone else as I did. Well, first, Jazakallah khair for this very informative speech. Actually, you highlighted it from the Islamic perspective in terms of inviting people, but also from family-wise as well. You reminded me when you said you went to Al-Gahma, right? To fish, and there were people fishing, actually for Muslims. And last week we spoke about this, but it was kind of fast. And in terms of communication in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directed us, or at least set an example or two or more, actually more, about how to communicate with people and how to invite people to Islam. And we remember the story of Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, when he was sent to Pharaoh, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to him, speak to him gently. Okay, despite the fact that Pharaoh claimed to be the God. And last time I mentioned that we had one of our brothers, Patrick Philbot, who stayed, I think, more than 10 years, maybe more. And he came to me one day. I did not say to him, why didn't you become a Muslim? And this is a very important element in inviting people. Just put yourself in the shoes of others. And you have to consider their background and upbringing. It's just like someone coming to you and saying, why don't you become Christian? And he hated that some of the students will knock on his door and say, when are you going to be a Muslim? And this is really bad, very, very bad. When Yusuf was present, 2 inmates actually observed him. So it's part of it is communication, the other part is setting the right and the good example. So they approached him because he was righteous to interpret their dreams. And at that moment, he took the chance and started inviting people and telling them that it is Allah who deserves to be worshipped before interpreting their dreams. Sometimes people argue for the sake of argument, not for the sake of finding out the truth. And that's the story of Abraham and the king. So some people will argue and some people need to know. And that's why you waited. You were so interested, but it wasn't, you were just waiting for the right moment and you want to be sure. So I just wanted to highlight that And you spoke, actually, you covered all the topics, but it would be really very nice if you tell us some of how you became a Muslim. It might be a long story, but at least to highlight the most important, stages. And what are the things that you hated, or at least disliked, in terms of respect, or people not jumping into conclusion? Because, we are, from a Muslim perspective, we are actually looking for, grabbing that, fruit, which is already, has already arrived. But, we shouldn't forget that somebody has planted the seed, somebody had watered that seed, and when it is the right time, you might be the, right person. So it would be really, if it's not that a burden, what are the things that you probably pushed you away instead of getting you closer? Jazakallah khair. And sorry for being, too long.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. According to my, what I understood from Dr. Malan, that means we have to sort out the sensitive time, that when to give, when to deliver the message, and also that not that every background is same, every person is the same, a different individuality, they have got different individual, they have got different individuality. So when Subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Musa alayhi salam to Pharaoh, but Subhanahu wa ta'ala, he knows that Musa and Pharaoh doesn't accept Islam, and also Subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said that innahu taga, idhabu ila Pharaoh innahu taga, and he is so arrogant, but be gentle with him. So that bridge is very clear. That means that we are gentle, we are calling an arrogant person. But not that the same situation when Yusuf was with his two companions in the jail. That is an entirely different situation. So that we could not able to sow the seeds in the same soil in another situation. So that the one who is doing the dawah, they should be so cautious to know. That is why the data collection is the best way to understand the situations of that person, from where, and what is his background. From that you have to sort out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was very relevant, so thank you very much for that. I will answer both questions. The first thing that you have to understand, and it's one of the things I didn't like, and I didn't want to offend anybody when I first got here, is in the first six months of my getting here, I got more than 400 books and pamphlets and articles and letters. They still piled high on a bed in my spare room in my apartment. 400. And that is a bit of information overload, and it answers both questions. I didn't like that, because what it did was it made me feel almost compelled to accept something that I wasn't ready to accept. And that made me, when your mother said to you as a child, clean your room, you knew it was good to clean your room, but did you like doing it? No. Okay. So even when I got to the stage where I thought, this is the right thing, I thought, if these people are pushing me like this now, how much worse is it going to be? I didn't realize that once I became a Muslim, the pressure drops. If I know that, I would have just bluffed in the beginning. No, I'm not. But what I would like to say, and it answers the lady's question, is that to me, less is more, because we don't understand. What we do is, when we communicate from our point of view. We don't communicate understanding the other person we're speaking to. We're not all academics, we're not all in the field of psychology or social development or anything. So what we want to do is, firstly, understand there's no compulsion in Islam, but we do have a responsibility as Muslims to spread the word. This is what we have to do. But we become so excited about spreading the word that we go into what we call in the West overkill. Okay, we do it too much. And instead of drawing people closer, we push them away. So what we've got to do is, you've got to be consistent. And every one of those 400 people only approached me once. So they weren't in overkill, but the whole concept and the whole idea of everybody doing it was overkill for me. It was too much for me. There is another South African here this year, and I believe in the less is more approach. I've never given him a book, I've never given him an article, I've never given him a pamphlet, I've never written him a little letter. But now and again, when I go to the masjid for Jummah prayer on a Friday, which I do with one of the main reasons I'm a Muslim today, Altaf Malik from the university. I go and I offer salah with him, and we will offer Jummah with him on a Friday. Now and again I'll say to the South African, just for sociological reasons, come have a look at what a masjid looks like inside. The carpets are beautiful, the chandeliers are amazing. It's something worth seeing, and before you leave, you have to see the inside of a mosque. Now, I didn't go and tell him to come and pray with us, I didn't come in to come and accept Allah, I didn't come in to believe in the Prophet, I didn't tell him anything. All I said to him was, come to the mosque with me to have a look at how beautiful it is inside. And he turned me down on 3 occasions. And on the 3rd occasion, he said to me, I know what you're doing. Okay. He said, I know what you're doing. I said, I'm doing nothing. I said, it's a sociological project for you. He says, I'm not stupid. Okay. He knew what I was doing. And I had to back off. It's my job to back off because there's no compulsion in Islam. And I thought I was being very, very gentle. And I thought I was being very clever. So what people need to do is be careful how you handle people, and instead of living through documents and papers and books and Quran, live through example. Okay? Live through example. If we push people by talking to them, if we push people by throwing literature at them, we're going to push them away. But if we show them how we live through our actions, hopefully our actions are consistent with our religion and we can draw them closer. That is what we need to do. That is one of the things I didn't like about this whole episode for me. One of the other things that I didn't like was the fact that there seems to be political differences that are influencing Islam in this country. And as I said, I'm going to be totally honest here because I'm not going to pretend everything's perfect. If you pretend everything's perfect, you're living in a fool's paradise. Okay, I love this country, I love the people, I love being here, I love my job, but it's not perfect. It's more perfect than South Africa, where I come from. It's a better option, and that is why I'm here, because if it wasn't a better option, I'd be in South Africa. In South Africa, I can go to the beach and look at girls. In South Africa, if I wanted to, I could have a beer. In South Africa, there are green mountains, there are waterfalls, there are beautiful things to see. I look out my window here and I see desert. So there's got to be a reason for me staying here, and it can't just be financial. Because truth to tell, the finance isn't that great for Westerners. Maybe a lot greater for people from other countries, but for Westerners it's not that good a deal. And after a year it's normally enough for Westerners to leave and say, well, I've had the experience, it's time to go home now. But I'm going into my 3rd year now. And so I think this is a good country, but it's not perfect. And I think one of the main things that put me off Islam is the fact that this is the home of the 2 holy mosques. This is the home of Islam. But a lot of the people that come from this place are not Muslims in their actions. There's a saying in the West that says, don't just talk the talk, but if you want to talk the talk, walk the walk. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people will talk the talk, and a lot of people are going and offering salah 5 times a day, because if they don't, their neighbors are going to say, well, look at him, he's not doing it. There's a lot of people that are doing things because they have to. And I even noticed it at the university. We have a place where most of the teachers offer salah. And I don't go there because I deal with students. And if I deal with students, my feeling is I want to pray with my students. And I have a language program there now, and we have a room there, so when it's time for dhuhr, at 12 o'clock, 12:15, whenever, we pray together. The students pray together. But 2 things I've noticed. The first thing is that a lot of the times it's like machines. We're praying like machines. We're not praying because we mean it. We're praying because it's time to pray. And if we don't pray, everybody's going to look at us as if we're crazy. What's wrong with him not praying? Why isn't he praying? He's a bad Muslim. So that everything is like a machine. Everything is like normal. Not like normal, like it's I have to do this. I don't want to do this. And one of the examples, and this is a bit of a naughty example, but sometimes I wear jeans and t-shirts. And the other day we were praying in the language program room, and I was in the front row of prayer, and I had jeans on, and there were students behind me. Now, when I pray, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm new at this, all right? But when I pray, and my face, I'm in supplication. When my face is on the ground, my forehead and my nose touch the ground. And if my forehead and my nose are touching the ground, I cannot see what is in front of me. But we prayed, and we went into supplication, and the students behind me started giggling. And I realized my t-shirt and my jeans had separated. And so they started giggling. And I'm thinking, I knew immediately what was going on. Now, I'm earnestly praying. I mean, the only time in my life when I have peace is when I pray. So I like praying. But I'm doing this, and I'm aware my jeans and my t-shirt have just separated. And they're praying behind me, but they're giggling. And this is now proof that people do not pray because they want to connect with Allah. They pray because everybody else is praying. And these are the things that are happening in this country. Firstly, there's a sense amongst the local people of this country that because they own the two holy mosques, and because the Kaaba is here, and all these physical things are here, for me, being a Muslim is first and foremost my relationship with Allah. And the rest means nothing. As far as I know, the masjids are supposed to be simple places of worship. And we're spending billions on these beautiful mosques, and I love them. I want to actually go and take photographs and make a book on the beautiful mosques. But that wasn't the intention of a mosque. The intention of a mosque was to connect with your God. And a lot of the people here think that because they own this country, that they are the owners of Islam. And I think it's a pity that they have to think that, because there's a differentiation. Some people are better Muslims than others. And I think in the eyes of Allah, we're all the same. And at the end of the day, if we're all the same, we should be treating each other the same. And that is one of the biggest problems that I've had with Islam being in this country. As a matter of fact, some other Muslims, also Westerners from Muslims, have said that they were surprised that I accepted Islam in this country, because they said it should be more difficult in this country than anywhere else. And I felt that when I went home to South Africa last year. I felt freer in South Africa. Not free to do bad things, but freer to connect with God. Because there were less rules, there were less things that are expected of us. So those are some of the things I didn't like about it. Any other questions, or is the time up?
Did you have any relationships with Muslims before embracing Islam there in South Africa?
Okay, the question was, did I have relationships with any Muslims in South Africa before I embraced Islam? The Muslim community in South Africa is very small. South Africa is a racialistic country that has a huge history of racism, where white people didn't like black people, and Arabs didn't like Indians, and Indians didn't like whoever. There was this whole thing going on in my country, and Muslims in South Africa are generally not white, and I am, if you didn't notice. Okay. So Muslims are generally not white, and the only Muslims I'd seen were these strange men wearing strange clothes with big beards, who had shops in certain parts of the city. They were all shopkeepers, or generally shopkeepers, and we stayed away from those areas because they were just a bit strange. Okay, that's how we viewed it. But we didn't understand. You must understand that in the West we are fed a lot of propaganda. We are fed a lot of things that are not true to maintain the West's stronghold on the world. So we come here and we find out the truth. Not all of it is beautiful, okay? But the truth is much better than the lies that we've been told in the West. So no, I didn't. And as a matter of fact, when I came in, I saw men kissing each other and wearing funny things on their head and wearing long dresses. I thought you were a crazy bunch of people. Okay, it was really, really strange. But then you realize people are different, and different doesn't mean wrong. Different just means different. Some people are tall, some people are short, some people have blue eyes, some people have brown eyes, and different is just different. That's all it is. There's nothing else to it. But I had no connection, and as a matter of fact, I feel quite uncomfortable going to the masjid in South Africa because of the racial aspect. I walked into the masjid the first time when I went back to South Africa, and I actually had a thought on. And that I learned from the whole jeans thing and praying, because it happened to me in a mosque as well once. Okay, and some guy came and spoke to me and said, oh, I didn't understand what he was saying, but then they translated and it said, you know, your jeans are sticking out. But I went into the mosque, and all these people who are not white looked at me as if to say, what's this white man doing here? You know? And they were Muslims, and I thought that they would accept me as a brother. But there's still racial issues in South Africa that have to be taken care of. So I felt uncomfortable going to the mosque in South Africa. There's only one in my city. My city has about 500,000 people. There's only one mosque. So.
Okay, we'll allow one last question from the lady section. We'll conclude. Any other question from the lady section? Yes or no? Exactly. So we cannot thank Brother Abdurrahman enough really for this very realistic, and very frank and mashallah clear presentation. And we pray to Allah to reward him for every single, not minute, but even second that he spent with us. And he gave us a promise that inshallah in the future he might enlighten us with something related to this issue, or how would you deal or refute. Is this what I understood, Exactly, yes, exactly. As usual, brothers, please allow the sister. Now the sister will leave the hall first, and then we will follow. Now I request our sisters to leave the hall.